The day my sister Vera stepped into that Navy SEAL training facility, every man in that room looked at her like she was already broken. What they didn't know was that she'd been preparing for this moment her entire life, carrying a burden none of them could imagine. Before we dive in, tell us where in the world are you watching from? If you enjoy stories like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button, because tomorrow's episode is truly mind-blowing. Let's get started. I watched from the observation deck as she walked through those doors at Naval Special Warfare Command in Coronado, California. 26 years old, 5'6", weighing maybe 130 pounds, soaking wet. The other candidates towered over her like redwood trees casting shadows over a wildflower. But there was something in the way Vera carried herself that morning that made my chest tighten with both pride and terror. She wore our father's dog tags tucked beneath her training shirt. Dad had been killed in Afghanistan when Vera was just 16, and since that day she'd been fighting a war nobody else could see. The war against the voice in her head that whispered she wasn't strong enough, wasn't tough enough, wasn't enough, period. Commander Hayes stood at the front of that room like a granite monument to military tradition, 43 years old, built like a linebacker, with scars that told stories he'd never share, and eyes that had seen things that would break lesser men. He'd been breaking SEAL candidates for 15 years, and he looked at my sister like she was his next victim. Behind him stood Chief Petty Officer Donovan, second in command, and Hayes' right hand. Where Hayes was fire and intimidation, Donovan was ice and calculation. He'd already made up his mind about Vera before she even spoke her first word. I could see it in the way he crossed his arms and shook his head almost imperceptibly when she introduced herself. The other candidates sized her up like predators evaluating prey. Rodriguez, built like a tank and fresh out of Marine reconnaissance. Thompson, a former college football player who looked like he could bench press a pickup truck. Morrison, lean and mean with the kind of quiet intensity that screamed Special Forces material. Patterson, who'd been talking nonstop about his CrossFit competitions and marathon times. And Jenkins, the quiet one in the corner who was probably the most dangerous of them all. But here's what none of them knew about my sister Vera. She'd been running 8 miles every morning at 4 a.m. for 2 years straight. She'd been lifting weights until her hands bled and studying military tactics until her eyes burned. She'd been preparing for this moment not just physically, but mentally and emotionally in ways that would have impressed our father if he'd lived to see it. More importantly, she was carrying something that would either destroy her or forge her into something unbreakable. 3 months before Dad died, he'd written her a letter that she'd never shown anyone in our family. A letter that questioned whether she had what it took to serve her country. A letter that called her too soft, too emotional, too weak to honor the family name. That letter had been eating away at her for 10 years, and she'd decided that the only way to silence those words was to prove them wrong. In the most difficult military training program in the world, as I watched her stand there, surrounded by men who'd already written her off, I realized that this wasn't just about becoming a Navy SEAL. This was about a daughter trying to prove to her dead father that his final judgment of her character had been catastrophically wrong. This was about a woman who'd spent 10 years believing she was a disappointment, finally ready to find out what she was really made of. The room fell silent as Commander Hayes began to speak, and I knew that everything that happened next would either vindicate my sister's decade-long quest for redemption or confirm her worst fears about herself. But looking at Vera in that moment, seeing the set of her jaw and the fire in her eyes, I had a feeling that everyone in that room was about to learn something they'd never forget about underestimating the quiet strength of someone who has nothing left to lose. Vera grew up as the youngest of 3 siblings in our military family, and she was always the one trying to keep up. While our older brother Camden excelled at academics and I focused on sports, Vera was the dreamer who built elaborate fort systems in our backyard and insisted on carrying a first aid kit everywhere we went. She was 8 years old when she announced she wanted to be a soldier like Dad, and Colonel Caldwell just smiled and ruffled her hair. Our father was career Army, a man who believed in discipline, honor, and protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. He'd served 3 tours overseas before settling into a teaching role at Fort Benning, where he trained young officers. Vera worshipped him. She'd sit at his feet during his rare moments of downtime, listening to him explain military strategy and asking questions that impressed even his fellow officers. When Dad deployed to Afghanistan in 2014, Vera was 16 and convinced she could handle anything. She helped Mom manage the household, kept her grades up, and wrote him letters every single day. She'd count down the months, then weeks, then days until his return. The morning we got the knock on our door, Vera was in the kitchen making his favorite cookies for when he came home. Mom, Patricia, held our family together through pure force of will after that. She was a teacher herself, but she became our everything overnight. She had to watch Vera retreat into herself, spending hours in Dad's study reading his military books and staring at his commendations on the wall. While Camden and I processed our grief openly, Vera buried hers so deep I wondered if she'd ever find it again. After graduating summa cum laude from Virginia Tech with a mechanical engineering degree, Vera shocked everyone by enlisting. Mom cried. Camden called her crazy. I just watched her face during the family meeting where she announced her decision, and I saw something I hadn't seen since before Dad died. Purpose. She'd been training in secret for 2 years. 4 a.m. runs that turned into 8-mile marathons, weight training sessions that left her hands bloody and raw, tactical manuals hidden under her textbooks. She'd transformed herself from our grieving little sister into something harder, more focused, more dangerous. The day she got selected for the Special Operations Pipeline, Mom pulled me aside and whispered, "She's trying to bring him back." But I knew it was more complicated than that. Vera wasn't trying to resurrect our father. She was trying to prove she was worthy of being his daughter. From the moment Commander Hayes laid eyes on Vera, he made his position crystal clear. During the initial briefing, he walked the length of the room, stopping directly in front of her. "Miss Caldwell, I've broken Navy SEALs who were twice your size and had twice your experience. This isn't about equality or making history. This is about capability under pressure. And frankly, I don't believe you have what it takes to protect the men who would serve alongside you." The other candidates exchanged glances that spoke volumes. Rodriguez leaned over to Thompson and whispered, "How long you think she lasts?" "I'm betting 3 days." Thompson smirked back. "I'll take that bet, but I'm saying 2. The psychological warfare began immediately. During combat drills, instructors paired Vera exclusively with the largest, strongest candidates. While other recruits rotated partners based on skill levels, she faced Rodriguez's crushing grip strength, Thompson's overwhelming size advantage, and Morrison's technical superiority day after day. When she managed to hold her own, instructors dismissed it as luck. When she struggled, they made sure everyone noticed. The physical standards weren't adjusted for anyone. Vera had to match every male recruit's performance in ocean conditioning, obstacle courses, and endurance runs. While they recovered between exercises, she pushed herself twice as hard during rest periods, knowing that being equal wasn't enough. She had to be better. The breaking point came during Week 3's ocean conditioning exercise. The Pacific was brutally cold that morning, and the surf was punishing. After 2 hours of treading water in full gear, Vera's body finally gave out. She collapsed on the beach, her lips blue and her hands shaking uncontrollably. As medics wrapped her in thermal blankets, I watched Chief Donovan shake his head in disgust. Later that evening, he pulled me aside in the parking lot. "Your sister's got heart, I'll give her that. But heart doesn't stop bullets or carry wounded teammates to safety. This program has killed Marines who were bigger and stronger than her. Maybe it's time she reconsidered her career path." That night, Vera called me for the first time since training started. Her voice was raw and broken. "They're right about me. Dad was right about me. I'm just fooling myself, thinking I can fill boots that were never meant for feet like mine." Instead of quitting, Vera made a decision that changed everything. The morning after her breakdown, she marched straight to Commander Hayes' office and requested a private meeting. I watched through the window as she sat across from his desk, her back ramrod straight despite the exhaustion written across her face. "Sir, I need you to understand why I'm really here." Her voice was steady now, no trace of the broken woman from the night before. 3 months before my father died in Afghanistan, he sent me a letter. It wasn't like his other letters full of encouragement and pride. This one was different. Hayes leaned back in his chair, probably expecting another sob story about daddy issues. He had no idea what was coming. He wrote that he was proud of my brother Camden's academic achievements and impressed by his acceptance to law school. He praised my older brother's athletic accomplishments and leadership potential. But when he got to me, his tone changed completely. Vera's hands were steady as she pulled a worn envelope from her pocket. He said he was worried about me. that I was too soft, too emotional, too dependent on others to ever serve my country with honor. He died believing I wasn't strong enough to carry the family name. The change in Hayes's expression was subtle but unmistakable. This wasn't manipulation or emotional blackmail. This was raw truth from a woman who had been carrying a 10-year burden. Sir, I'm not asking for special treatment or easier standards. I'm asking for one chance to prove myself the way a SEAL would prove themselves. Vera stood up, meeting his gaze directly. Give me a modified Hell Week, 72 hours. Me against your top 5 candidates in every discipline that matters. Combat swimming, weapons proficiency, tactical planning, and hand-to-hand combat. Hayes started to object, but Vera continued. If I fail any single component, I walk away and never come back. If I succeed, you give me the same fair shot you'd give any other candidate who earned it. The commander studied her for a long moment. You understand what you're asking for, Caldwell. This isn't just about proving yourself anymore. You're asking me to put my reputation on the line. Yes, sir. Just like you've been asking me to put mine on the line every day since I got here. The 72-hour challenge became legendary at the facility. Word spread through the ranks like wildfire, and by day 2, even off-duty instructors were finding excuses to observe the competition. For the first time in program history, a candidate had voluntarily requested the ultimate test of worthiness. Vera dominated the combat swimming trials, her engineering background helping her calculate optimal stroke patterns and breathing techniques. During weapons proficiency, she outshot Rodriguez and matched Thompson's accuracy under pressure. The tactical planning exercise revealed a strategic mind that impressed even Chief Donovan, who grudgingly admitted her mission scenarios were textbook perfect. But everyone knew the real test would be the final challenge. Hand-to-hand combat against all 5 top candidates in a simulated hostage rescue scenario. The mission parameters were brutal. Vera had to neutralize all 5 opponents while protecting a civilian target in a confined space. Everyone expected her to rely on speed and evasion tactics against larger opponents. Instead, she chose direct confrontation. The first 3 candidates fell quickly to techniques that combined her mechanical engineering knowledge of leverage with years of focused training. But when Rodriguez, the largest and strongest, locked her in what should have been a submission hold, the entire observation deck fell silent. Vera was pinned, his massive arms cutting off her air supply. Victory seemingly impossible. That's when she did something that changed everything. She looked directly up at Commander Hayes through the observation window and spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. Sir, my father was wrong about me being too soft, but he was right about one thing. I am emotional. And my emotions don't make me weaker. They make me stronger. Using a combination of biomechanical precision and sheer willpower fueled by 10 years of grief and determination, she broke Rodriguez's hold with a technique that left the entire facility speechless. She completed the hostage rescue mission in record time, standing over 5 defeated opponents while protecting her target. Commander Hayes came down from the observation deck, his face unreadable. For a moment that stretched into eternity, he studied Vera as she stood there, bloodied but unbroken. Finally, he extended his hand. Welcome to the program, SEAL Candidate Caldwell. Vera didn't just complete the Special Operations program. She graduated second in her class, earning the respect of every man who had initially written her off. Rodriguez, the same candidate who had nearly submitted her in that final combat test, became one of her strongest advocates. During the graduation ceremony, he told anyone who would listen, "She didn't just beat us that day. She taught us what real strength looks like." The transformation extended beyond individual relationships. Chief Donovan approached me weeks later with something I never expected to hear. Your sister has fundamentally changed how we evaluate candidates now. We're looking for different qualities, asking different questions. She proved that heart and intelligence matter more than raw physical power. But the most powerful moment came at graduation, when Commander Hayes called Vera to the front of the assembly. Our mother Patricia had sent him something without telling any of us. Dad's Purple Heart. Hayes held it up for everyone to see before pinning it to Vera's uniform. Candidate Caldwell, your father would be proud today, not because you proved you could be like him, but because you proved you could be better than him. You've shown us that strength isn't about meeting someone else's definition of capability. It's about defining capability for yourself. Vera broke down crying for the second time since Dad's death. But these were different tears. These were tears of redemption, of a daughter finally hearing the words she'd needed to hear for 10 years. Today, Vera serves as a special operations instructor at the same facility where she once faced doubt and discrimination. She trains the next generation of warriors, but more importantly, she's become the person our father always hoped she could be. Not despite her emotions and compassion, but because of them. Her office wall displays two items side by side: Dad's Purple Heart and the letter he wrote questioning her strength. She keeps both as reminders that sometimes the greatest victories aren't about proving others wrong, but about proving to yourself that the voice telling you that you're not enough is the only enemy that truly matters. If this story inspired you, hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible stories about people who refuse to accept limitations others placed on them.